Okay. So basically, the idea is to set up complete DevSecOps a CI/CD pipeline. Okay. So before we jump to DevSecOps, we need to understand what exactly is DevOps and how does it help us? Why do we need it? Okay. Now, in very short way, I'll explain. So basically, before DevOps was there, before that also there were deployments happening. People will building applications, performing security, different kind of security, and deploying. Okay, but that was not proper. That was not properly organized. Okay. For example, before we have DevOps tools like CI/CD tools. Before that, easily one can do what? You can set up one Linux machine, build your application inside that, right? Run SonarQube or any other tool like that, and then perform deploy. The problem with this approach is that there is no proper management, there is no proper organization, because each stage that you want to run, you have to do it manually. Okay. Also, like if there are multiple people who want to run, there is no proper way to coordinate among themselves. Okay, who is going to run and who has run the pipeline last. Okay. Then came the DevOps and everything became much better. Okay. Now, in short, DevOps is not a single tool or technology, it's a way, it's a process. It's basically a flow. Okay. What kind of flow is DevOps? So basically, it's a flow in which we follow, first of all, best practices. Okay. Whatever we want to do with respect to our application, building, deployment, security, all those things, we have to follow the best practices. Okay. That is the first thing. Secondly, everything is organized. Okay. Thirdly, we get a very good option of automation. Okay, and why automation is necessary? Because it helps us to someone pinging or what? Yeah. So basically, why automation is very useful, because it speeds up the whole software development lifecycle process. It's going to help us to speed up the process so that we can build the application and deploy it. Okay. Also, when we have automation, it saves a lot of time. That means the deployment of our application. For example, let's say I have some new feature which I want to deploy to my new application. Okay. So this new feature, if you want to deploy to the application and release it in the market, if we have automation, then we can save a lot of time and we can release new features very easily in the market. Okay. Then early testing of security. Okay. So when we have DevOps and when we integrate different level of security aspect, then very early stage itself, we will be able to find what kind of security vulnerabilities are present in our application. And if we have that information at the early stages of application building and deployment, we can easily resolve those security related issues, and then we can make sure that our application is free of any kind of vulnerability or any kind of issues. Okay. So all these factors come together when we start using DevOps or DevSecOps. Okay. Now, what exactly is DevSecOps? Okay, so it's not just about okay, we are using security tools in our pipeline, then it becomes DevSecOps. No, in DevSecOps, previously also they were using security, but it was not like everywhere we were using security. But when we introduce this term DevSecOps, every stage of the pipeline we can start using security, which I'll be showing you in a bit. Okay. And plus security became one of the very important factor that we need to focus on, so that before we release the application in the market, we need to make sure that there is no any kind of bug, there is no any kind of vulnerabilities, there are no any vulnerable points within the application. So security became a very important aspect in when we introduce this DevSecOps. Okay. And here also we have to follow the best practices from security point of view. Okay, from security point of view, we need to make sure that nothing is exposed, no kind of credential, password, or any kind of API details, nothing is exposed. Okay, we need to make sure that. Okay, then as I mentioned, security became very important concept while when we started using DevSecOps. Okay, so like what kind of security we have to do? So as I mentioned, at every stage we have to make sure that security is there. For example, first thing that we do usually is checkout. We create a local copy of the application source code inside Jenkins or any other CI/CD tool, so that CI/CD tool utilize the code to build and run different tasks. Okay. So after checkout itself, first level of security that we do is compile. Now compile, what it does, it's basically is going to help you find out if there are any syntax related errors in your source code or not. For example, let's say we have missed any kind of semicolon, okay, in our code. So that through compilation we'll be able to know that. Okay, so first level of security can be easily done through compile itself. Okay, second level of security, like once we have compilation done, next level of security that we can do is by running the test cases. Which test cases? Unit test cases. This is going to help us find out if the application source code is working in the same way it is supposed to. Okay, for example, if I have written the code that basically does a plus b equal to c. Okay, so by writing different unit test cases and executing it, we'll be able to know if if we are providing 4 and 6, it should be providing 10. If this is not happening, then we will say, okay, uh, we have some kind of issue or bug in our source code. From this point of view, the code is not working in the same way as it is supposed to. Okay, second level of security we can implement by using test cases, which will help us to confirm that our source code is working in the same way it is supposed to. Okay, after this is done, next step what we do, we use a tool like SonarQube. Okay, now SonarQube is supposed to perform two things. One is known as code quality check. Second is known as code coverage. Okay, whenever you are going for interviews, this is one of the questions that they might ask you, what exactly is the difference between code quality check and code coverage. Okay, so first let us understand what is code quality check. So basically from the name itself you can understand code quality check, that means the quality of the code. But how do we measure the quality of the code? So basically when developer writes source code, it can have issues like bugs, vulnerabilities, code smell, and there are so many other terms also, that these are different kind of issues that could exist within the source code. Okay, that is the like whatever source code is written by developer, so these kind of issues could be there. Okay, so in our application source code, if these things are very less, or minimal, then we say that code quality is quite good. Okay, if these things are quite like a very huge in number in our source code, then we say code quality is not good. Okay, so that is code quality in detail. Actually I cover very detail in about SonarQube in upcoming batch as well as previous batches. Okay, now second thing that we have is code coverage. Now what exactly is code coverage? Okay, so from the name itself we can understand it means like coverage of code. That means how much code is covered. So in what aspect we are talking about this? Okay, so let us say that we have 100 lines of code. Okay, the total lines of code that we have is 100, and total number of unit test cases we have written is 10. 10 test cases we have written. Now these 10 test cases, their task is to cover, okay, cover or test the 100 lines of code, their functionality. Okay, that means that if I execute these 10 test cases, it's going to test complete 100 lines of code. Okay, then the percentage of lines of code, a percentage of, you can say the percentage of code that is tested or covered by running the test cases, that percentage we say as code coverage. That means if I, let's say if I have 10 test cases and if I have 100 lines of code, we ran the unit test cases, and running these test cases was able to properly test, let's say 90 lines. Okay, then we say that it is 90% of code coverage is there, because 90% of the line, 90% of the code is tested. We can assure that these lines are correctly written and they are passing the test. Okay, if this running 10 test cases, if we execute them and if it is able to cover, let's say 100 lines of code, that means complete source code is tested, then we say 100 lines of code is 100% is the code coverage. Okay, that is what SonarQube is about. So SonarQube is going to help us find different kind of bugs, vulnerabilities, code smell, and other issues within the source code. And the best part about SonarQube is that it's going to help us resolve it also. Okay, I'll show you in a bit when hands on. Okay, so this is the next level of security that we can implement. Okay, after that we have another tool which is known as Trivi. Trivi is one of the most versatile tools. There are many people who are teaching this OWASP also. Very long ago I was also teaching, but at this point I don't recommend OWASP dependency check. I'll explain you the reason for that. Okay, because OS dependency check is primarily used to scan the file system plus the jar files. Okay, but same thing can be done by Trivy and more. That means Trivy can scan our file system, our artifacts, can scan the configuration files, as well as scan the Docker images. That means ki if single tool can perform this task also, whatever this is going to do, and plus more, then obviously we are going to choose Trivy over other tool, right? Now, Trivy, what exactly is going to do? So first, it's going to perform a file system scan. Now in file system scan, what exactly it's going to scan? So we have many configuration files. For example, like we might be having YAML manifest files for Kubernetes. We might be having Terraform files. So Trivy is going to find us if those are like if any kind of vulnerabilities are there in those files. If there are any error in those manifest files, that it can will be able to find. Plus, if you have added any password or like token openly, that means those credentials are exposed in your files. Trivy can let you know that also, that it is exposed, and we need to make sure that it is not exposed. Okay, third thing that it can scan is basically uh let's say it can scan jar file also. Jar is like artifact. It can scan dependencies also. Okay, for example, in Java based application we have pom.xml, in Node.js we have package.json, in Python we have from requirements.txt. So those are like basically dependency file that contain information about dependencies. So Trivy can scan those also and let us know if any specific dependency is vulnerable or outdated. Okay, so in short, Trivy can perform lot of things. First of all, file system scan, then it can scan artifacts, it can scan dependencies also, and it can scan configuration files. Configuration files example, like for Kubernetes we might have manifest YAML files. For like Terraform we may have like .tf files. So all these are basically configuration files which can be scanned by Trivy also. Okay, now after that, usually what we have, we build the application to get the artifact. Jar file in case of Java application, zip or other format in case of Node.js, or and for other kind of application we have different formats. Okay, now usually when we build application we get an artifact. Artifact in case of Java it's going to be jar file. Okay, now as I mentioned, Trivy can scan jar also, right? So here also we are implementing security. Now here, from here, initial thing you can see clearly that every point we are trying to integrate security. Okay, after building, what we do, we publish the artifact. Okay, now here no specific security we have to implement, because we are going to publish the jar file or any other artifact which we have already scanned. Okay, after publishing artifact, what we have, we build our Docker image. Okay, so we build Docker image, and once we have built our Docker image, before pushing that Docker image to Docker Hub registry, we need to scan the Docker image as well. Now, as I said, one of the most versatile tool from security point of view is Trivy. So Trivy is a tool that can scan Docker images as well. But what exactly is going to scan within that? So generally, in our Docker image, what we have the artifact like jar. We have a, base image like the OS which we are going to use, right? We can have some other configuration files also. Okay, so all these things can be scanned by Trivy to let us know through a report that if there is any kind of vulnerabilities or any other kind of issue that we need to take care of. Okay, so at this point also we are implementing security. Okay, after we have built Docker image, next step would be to deploy to Kubernetes. Okay, now as I told before itself that before we deploy the manifest files, if they are correctly written or not, that can be scanned by Trivy. If there is any kind of issues with those configuration manifest files, that can be scanned by Trivy. Second thing, since we want to deploy our application to Kubernetes, we have to set up credentials until unless we are not using the like Argo CD. Okay, so if we are setting up credentials, what exactly we should be doing? So in order to set up like security here itself, first thing that we are going to do inside Kubernetes, we are not going to deploy directly with our root credentials or the admin credentials. Instead, we are going to create a separate service account. Okay, and we are going to give it minimum permission. Okay, minimum permission means ki whatever is required, the least privilege, whatever is required for it to perform the deployment, that permission we are going to give, so that it does not have access to do anything else. And then we are going to create a credential for it. Okay, Now this credential we can use inside Jenkins to perform the deployment. Okay, and this will make sure that we are performing deployment securely. We are not using root credentials. We are using a separate service account that has minimum permissions. The permission that is needed just for deployment or updating the deployment, that only permission this will be having. Okay. Now, for most of you might already know, okay, if we have deployed the application, then next thing would be to just monitor it, right? That we can do. But there is still another security aspect that we can integrate. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, but let me explain you. So once our application is deployed, the last level of security that we can implement is known as pen testing. Okay, I'm not showing it today, but I'll explain you. I'll be showing it maybe in course as well as in later on YouTube also. So basically in pen testing, what happens once let's say our application is running on this platform xyz.com. Okay, an application is deployed. So manually we attack that website from here and there using different tools. The whole point of attacking that website is to find out what are the vulnerable points. Vulnerable points means the weak points on the website from where it can be attacked. Okay, so once we have those weak points, once we have detailed information about that, then we can like connect with network team or infra team plus developers to resolve this. Okay, now you can see at every single stage that we have inside our pipeline, we are going to integrate security so that our pipeline, we can confidently say that yes, we have a DevSecOps pipeline where we have integrated security at every stage, making sure that if any issue is there within application, then we can find it early and resolve it very soon. That is the whole point of having DevSecOps pipeline. Okay. Now, I hope this was clear. Again, all these things we are going to implement now, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about these tools that I explained here. Okay, and these things will be more clear once we do hands-on. Okay, now, so let us understand. Okay, let us understand the flow also, proper flow before we start the implementation. So there usually are three sections. Okay, first we have is the development, you can say. Then we have the DevOps or DevOps instead of DevOps, let's say CICD. And then we have monitoring. Okay, so basically what happens, let's say I want to deploy something to production environment. Okay, and for each environment usually we have separate branch. So let's say we have one main branch. Okay, and the thing is if a branch is there that is supposed to contain the production ready code, then we are not supposed to directly commit anything into it. Neither the developers are supposed to. So usually what we have the previous branch. For example, let's say PPD. Okay, PPD, or let's say just call pre main. Okay, okay, so basically what happens, let's say initially some application needs to be deployed. So developers, what they are going to do, they are going to write the source code in their local machine, in their personal laptop or office laptop itself, just basically local. They're going to write the source code there. They are going to implement it locally itself. Okay, so that they can confirm that okay, the code that I have written, it's working fine. Okay, so once they have implemented it locally and it works fine, then they are going to push that to pre-main branch. Okay, once it is pushed to pre-main branch, and then they are going to raise a PR. PR is what? Basically pull request or merge request, you can say, because they want to merge their code into main branch. Then there will be some architect who is going to verify the changes, verify the code written by developers and confirm that okay, this code is correct, we can push it to main. And they are going to approve this pull request or merge request. Then the code written by developers, this is going to merge back into main. Once we have, and now at this point we have the production ready code inside main branch. After that, since we are DevOps engineers and automation is like very useful and a key concept, so what we do, we create a webhook. Okay, I'm going to show you a different kind of webhook, not the ones that you usually see on YouTube or anywhere else. Okay, so basically what it does, it will as soon as changes are pushed into main branch, it's going to immediately start the CI/CD pipeline. And in CI/CD pipeline, as I explained you, the steps that we are going to have: check out the code, compile, testing, then we have SonarQube, then we have 𝗕𝘁𝗶𝗴, then we have building of the application, then we have publishing the artifact to Nexus. And don't worry, I'll explain Nexus in a bit, what exactly it's used for and why do we need it. Then we build Docker image, then we scan Docker image, then we push Docker image, then we deploy to Kubernetes. Okay, and monitoring this can be done using Grafana, Prometheus, and other tools. Okay, now, so now let us do one thing. Let us set up our all the tools required so that we can practice well with those two. Okay. So for that, I'm going to set up everything on a specific virtual machine, and let me explain you the resources that we need to set up actually. Okay, so first we have to set up one EKS cluster where exactly we are going to deploy the application. Once we set up EKS cluster, we need to make sure that we are setting up RBAC also. RBAC is what? Role-based access control. As I said, we are going to set up different accounts and we are going to set up different roles. So not everyone is going to have the same role. Some people will be having admin level permission that can do anything. Some people will be having only few permission, and there will be some service accounts that have minimum privilege, and that is going to be used for deployment. Okay. Once we have set up EKS, we are going to set up Jenkins. We are going to set up SonarQube. We are going to set up Nexus, and yeah, these tools will be there. Okay, and I would suggest I would recommend team instead of watching the recording later on, you can watch this because properly I'm going to explain every small details that usually people forget. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now first thing that we are going to do is going to create one virtual machine from where we are going to create our EKS cluster. So I'm going to call this as server 1 2 machine I'm taking, and make sure the region that you select, it is supposed to be nearest to you. For me, since I'm in India, it's going to be Mumbai. And now I'll select machine, which is going to be T2 medium. Please team, it's a request, do not take below medium because it's going to hang a lot. Key pair, you can select the one that you have. If you are not having, then you can click on create new key pair, provide a name, make sure type is RSA and format is PEM. Then even once you click on create key pair, it will be downloaded on your local and that you can use. Okay. Network settings. So I'm going to select 1 second. Security group, just to show you that which ports that I have opened on my machine, so that you can open the same thing. If I show you on this one I'm using, so these are the general ports that I have opened. Okay, 1000, 11,000, 80, 500 to 1000, 443, 22. Okay, here if you see this section source 0.0.0/0, this thing, it basically means that our virtual machine that we are going to create, it will be accessible from anywhere. Okay, but if you want to limit it, if you want to like limit it from where it should be accessible, we have many options. For example, you can see custom my IP. If I click on my IP, then it's going to put my IP address here. That means the virtual machine that we create will be accessible only from my laptop itself, nothing from nowhere else. Okay, so based on that requirement, you can decide what will be the source. Okay, coming back here, and here storage, I'm going to go with 20 for the initial machine and click on launch instance. Once it is created, we can go to instance, get the public IP address, and now we have to go to this machine. So basically this MOBA term I'm going to use instead of putty because it has much better option. It is very user friendly format. Okay, this will help you to connect to your virtual machine. It is freely available, you can download it, and even if you are using your office laptop, still there you can download if you go with the portable version. Okay, so we'll double click on here and yeah, click on session, click on SSH because we are going to connect to our machine using SSH. Then provide the public IP address, then username in our case it's going to be Ubuntu since we have created Ubuntu machine. Then click on advanced SSH, click on private key. Now this private key is going to be used for authentication. This is the one that I selected, so we'll select it here, click on open, click on okay. Okay, and here let me just rename it, and I'm going to rename this to server. Okay, click on OK, and yeah, so once you create virtual machine, it may take few minutes to completely come up in running state, so just be patient. Double click on it, and yeah, here you can see it's working fine. Now whenever you create a virtual machine, make sure to remember that first thing that you have to do is run the command sudo apt update. What it does, it's going to update all the default packages available in the Linux repository so that they become ready for usage, because if you don't run this command, you are going to get issues that package not found, like that. So make sure to run this first command first. Okay, and now, so we have what we have to do. We have to set up EKS cluster, right? So in order to set up EKS cluster, what do we need? So as you know that EKS cluster is going to be set up inside AWS, right? And we have our account over AWS, and we just created our virtual machine. So we want that I should run command here for creating EKS cluster, but EKS cluster should be created on AWS account. That means first thing that we have to do is make sure that we are able to connect to our AWS account from our virtual machine. How this can be done? So this can be done using a tool, AWS CLI. What is that? It's a command line interface tool for AWS. That means if you want to connect to AWS account, you can use this. Okay. So first thing we have to install is AWS CLI. And where is it? So I have list of commands that we are going to use. So this is the command that we can use to install AWS CLI, and that I can run here. And let's wait for this. Okay, so it is done, right? So once it is installed, in order to connect to our AWS account, we can run the command AWS configure, which is going to ask us provide some credentials. You can see it is asking for AWS access key. From where do we get it? So for that, we have to go back to our AWS account. And generally what happens if I go to IAM, so what we do usually, we create one specific user, give it different level of permission, and then we get created credentials. But if you are doing this like for demo purpose, you can just click on your profile, click on security credentials, and you can go to access this section, access keys, and here you can generate the access key. Okay, this is not the recommended one, but if you want to practice, you can do with it. Okay, so these details we get, we can copy this, I can paste it here. Then it is asking secret access key, that also we can get it from here. Okay, and if now we have to provide the region. So we have the region AP dash south dash 1. It should be the region that is nearest to you, and default output format you just leave it as it is. So basically now what we have done, we have communicated and connected to our AWS account, and now we'll be having now, and since we have done that using root credentials, so now we have the permission to create the EKS cluster. So for that we need to have Terraform files, because we want to use the this IAC also, infrastructure as code. Okay, so you can go to my repository. There you'll be able to find one specific repository named EKS Terraform. Okay, and just to let you know, if you are going to use this repository, the only thing that you need to change, if you go to main.tf, first of all, make sure to change this availability zone. It should be with respect to your own region. Second thing that you have to change, if I show you variables.tf here, the name of your key that you have, private key. Okay. Rest, you can just use the same thing because it's completely in variable format itself. Okay. So I can clone this repository on my VM, git clone. Okay, and it is cloned, so we can go inside it. Okay, now if I want to run a Terraform commands, we need to make sure that we have Terraform present. So if I search here as Terraform, we can see Terraform is not present, but we have the command available. So we can install Terraform using snap package. Now if I run this command, we are going to get error. Why we are going to get error? Let me show you. You can see, so revision of snap Terraform was published using classic confinement. That means in order to install a Terraform, we need to add classic after it. Okay, so we'll add it, and this is going to install Terraform. Okay, now this may take quite some time, so just for now let us leave it. Meanwhile, we can go ahead and we can start creation of other resources and configuration of other tools. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, 1 second, let me download this EC2 machines, and here we are going to create 3 more machines, one for Jenkins, one for SonarQube, one for Nexus. So I'm going to type 3, and here we are going to select Ubuntu machine, again latest 24.04 LTS version. And as I told, do not take machine below T2 medium. If you take, then it's going to be very big issue. Okay, we can, yeah, see, this is something that you should always take care of. Region should be the one that is nearest to you. Okay, I hope my screen is still visible and no one is facing issue. Just confirm once, guys. Okay. this. And due to medium I'm taking DevOps Shack, and we can select the security group. Storage I'm giving to each one of them as 25, and we can launch. Okay, I think I have just launched one machine. Okay, let me launch 2 more. This, let us say this will be our Jenkins machine, and 2 more we need. Storage will be 25 for each of them. Click on launch instance. Okay, and let us name them so that one will be SonarQube and one will be Nexus. Okay, now first let us connect all these machines. First I'll get the IP address of Jenkins. I'll go to MobaXterm. I'll go here and click on write and create a duplicate session which we can rename to Jenkins. IP address you can change and click on OK. Similarly, we can create another duplicate session, and this time we are going to rename it to SonarQube, and we need to get the IP address of SonarQube virtual machine, which is going to be here. Copy that and paste it here. Okay, and one last we need to connect, which is going to be one more duplicate session we are creating, which is going to be for Nexus. Let me rename this first, and public IP address we can get from here. Copy that and we can paste here. Now let us connect to these machines. Okay, so all of them are running fine. Okay, now as I told you before also, first command that we are supposed to run whenever we create machine, sudo apt update, and same command we need to run in other machines as well, here also. Okay, okay. Now, in order to set up Jenkins, first thing that we need to understand is that Jenkins requires one Java version present on the same machine or a pod wherever Jenkins is going to set up. Okay, that means we need to install a Java here first. So I can type Java, and we can see that it's not present, but we get the command. So we are going to install JDK 17, and we can click enter, and it's going to install it. Okay. Once it is installed, we can, meanwhile it is getting installed, we can go to browser, and here we can simply search install Jenkins on Ubuntu or whichever machine you are using. Click on the first link, and here on left side you can see all the options available wherever you want to install. So we are going to go with Ubuntu. We are going to go with LTS because it is kind of stable version. So we'll copy the command and paste it here on the Jenkins VM. Okay, and okay. One more thing that I should tell you, if I scroll down, you'll be able to see one specific command. You can see the section start Jenkins, in which we have the first command which says sudo systemctl enable Jenkins. So why we need to run this command, because it's going to let Jenkins service to start at boot with the command, right? Basically, whenever a machine is getting restarted, immediately Jenkins service will also start. Okay, so I'll make sure to run this, and let's wait for this to complete for Jenkins installation. Okay, okay. Now Jenkins is installed. We can access it in browser. Give me 1 second. So we can access it by getting the public IP address of Jenkins virtual machine. We can put it on browser, and by default Jenkins runs on port 8080, so we can put that. And now you can see Jenkins is running. But first we need to have administrator password, which we can get from here. So I'll copy this path because password exists on this file, initial admin password. So I'll copy that. I'll use sudo because it requires elevated permission inside this file. And we are going to use cat command. We have the initial password. I can copy that and I can paste it in Jenkins. Click on continue. Now, customize Jenkins, so always go with the first option because Jenkins knows which are the plugins that are mandatory for it to run. So I'll just click on that. Okay, now this is being done. Meanwhile, we can go back to our, yeah. So here Terraform has been installed, right? So I can run the command now, Terraform init, which is going to initialize and which is going to set up the provider that we have defined in our YAML manifest files. Provider is nothing but inside provider we have mentioned on which cloud we want to create the resource. Okay. Now, once this is done, we can run the command Terraform plan, which is going to show us what resources are going to be getting created. Okay, and let's wait for this. You can see here in total there are 17 resources are going to get created. All details of resource that is going to get created is here. Okay, now in order to create those resources, we can run the command apply. Now if I run this command Terraform apply, it's going to give a prompt for me to asking to give permission to proceed. And since in case we are running this command in pipeline, then we don't have the option to provide the input to the prompt. In that case, we can simply add ---- auto dash approve, which basically means I'm giving permission, go ahead and create the resource. Okay. Now creation of resources inside creation of EKS cluster inside AWS, this may take some time because as you see there are 17 resources to be created. Okay, so we can go here. Okay, Jenkins is running, right? Now let us configure SonarQube and Nexus. For that, first of all, we need to install Docker on our machine because we are going to set up containers for those two machines, Nexus and SonarQube as well. So for that, you can search on Google Docker install Ubuntu, click on the first link, scroll down, and here we have this option install using apt repository. So we will copy this. And one more thing, see, the reason that I am installing by using the command directly from official page is because we have this option. If you see this, if I go to Nexus, if I run here Docker, we can see it gives us command to install, but it's going to install latest as 24, right? But if I install it using the official page, it's going to install a bigger version. Okay, let me show you. First, we are adding the repository. Second, we are going to install it. So I'll copy that and I will add it here. And let's wait for this. Same thing we can, 1 second. Yeah, on SonarQube also we can do sudo apt update. I can get the command to add the Docker repository. Okay, so add the Docker repository here. And final command is to install the install Docker on my machine. So I can run that as well. Okay. Now if I run here as docker ---- version, you can see the latest version is 27, which is much like new. Okay, that is the reason that I'm suggesting not to install directly from Linux repository because it's going to be older and that may cause some issues. Okay, one more thing that we need to understand here, 1 second, docker ---- version. So we need to understand that when you set up Docker, by default, only root user has permission for running Docker commands. If you want that your current user should be having permission, you have to add Docker. We have to add Ubuntu user or whichever user you are working with to Docker group so that whatever permission Docker group has, that can be assigned to your user also. For that, you can run the command sudo user mod -a capital G. Basically, -a capital G means we are appending the group. We are not removing the previous groups. We are just appending new group. Okay. And here the group to which you want to add your user. And here you can type the username. For example, in my case, it's Ubuntu. You can write either, we can write Ubuntu, or we can simply write $user, which means it's going to pick up the current user, which is Ubuntu, right? Click enter. And for these changes to get immediately take effect, you can write new group Docker. Either this you can do, or you can simply sign out and sign in with your inside your virtual machines. It works. Okay. Same thing we can run here, sudo user mod -a G Docker, and after that we have the option Ubuntu I can write. Okay. And new group. Okay. And since we are going to run Docker commands on Jenkins also, so there also I'm going to install, but there is a little bit catch there. I'll explain in a bit. Okay. Let's go back to here, Jenkins, and Jenkins is set up. Okay. So first we can provide some username password here. You can set up whatever password you want. That is up to you. Full name and email, you can put whatever you want. It's not going to be verified immediately. Okay. So Jenkins is set up. Okay. Now what I want that since we are going to run Docker commands on Jenkins also, so what we need to do, we are going to install Docker on Jenkins as well. Okay. For that same process we are going to do, we can get the first, we can add the Docker repository in our machine. And after that we can run the command to install Docker on our machine. Okay. Now, one thing we need to understand very clearly is that inside Jenkins, we are going to run commands. The whatever pipeline we have, it's going to be running as a Jenkins user, not with Ubuntu user. That means in case of Jenkins, we need to give permissions to run Docker command to user, that is Jenkins user, right? So how do we do that? We can go back here, and here I can run the command sudo user mod -a G Docker, then Jenkins. Okay. Now do not run the new group command here because it won't work properly. So what we have to do, once we have added this, for these changes to take effect, we can go back to Jenkins. Here simply on browsers put a slash, then type restart, which is going to restart your Jenkins server, and those changes, that is the permission for running Docker commands, will be applied. Okay. Now this is done. We can go back to our SonarQube machine and let us install, sorry, new group Docker. Yeah, this command we have to run. Okay. I hope I have run here also. Okay. Now we have to install SonarQube. We have to create SonarQube container. So for that, we have to run the command docker run -d. That means we are going to create a container. That creation process should be happening in backend. The -d is for detached mode. That means it will be running in backend. Then you can put hyphen name also for the container name, but that is not mandatory. Okay. After that, -p for we need to provide information about on which port on this virtual machine SonarQube will be accessible, and what will be the port that it will be open on the container. So first port is going to be host port. Okay. Second port is going to be container port. Okay. Now remember one thing, that this port can change. This port you can put whatever you want because it is a port on this virtual machine on which you want to access your this SonarQube. But this port should never be changed because it's a port that is open on the container. Okay, remember that. Then we have to provide the Docker image name. As I remember, SonarQube :ls dash community. There are multiple versions of SonarQube, free version, paid version, then enterprise version. What I'm using, it's a LTS version. It has some limitations. And again, if you want to learn in deep, you can just enroll to the course. I go very deep in SonarQube. Too many things I'll be teaching. Okay. Now it's going to install. It's going to create a Docker container of SonarQube, and if you want to practice with SonarQube or any other tool, this is the best way to create container, then like work with it. Okay. So this is happening. Meanwhile, let it be done. Okay. So you see, there is no specific logs coming, right? Because we added the -d. Now we can run the command docker ps and we can see that it is running. Okay. So in order to access our SonarQube, we can get the public IP address. Okay. And remember here that I'm going to put now this colon 9000. This 9000 that I'm writing, it is the host port 9000 that I have defined. Okay, remember that. and click on enter. Okay. Meanwhile, we can log in back to Jenkins. So now Jenkins is having the permission to run Docker commands, which is the something that we require. Okay, I can simply sign in here. Now SonarQube is also restarting, starting. Okay. Okay. Meanwhile, we can check the status of our EKS cluster. It's still in creation, I guess. It will take some. Okay. Cluster is created properly. 17 resources are created. Okay. Now, in order to access the cluster, just to see what is happening, we need to install kubectl, right? Because kubectl is the CLI tool for Kubernetes. For us to communicate with Kubernetes, we need to have kubectl. So it is not present, but we can again use snap package to install. And kubectl is also a kind of package that requires classic. Okay, so we'll add it, and now it will take few minutes to install. Meanwhile, we can go back to SonarQube. So by default, username password for SonarQube is admin. So we will put it, click on login, and we have to change the password now. I can put whatever you want. Okay, SonarQube is set up, Jenkins is set up. Now let us go set up our Nexus. Meanwhile, this is installing. In a bit, we'll check it back. So for Nexus to install, first of all, we need to get the Docker image for Nexus. For that, we can simply search here Nexus 3 Docker image. You can click on the first link, which is going to give you the latest Docker image. So I can copy that, go back here, and now we can run the command docker run -d -p. Then by default, a Nexus runs on port 8081. But as I say, first one is the host port, which can change to anything that you want. I'm just putting 8080 for ease of reading. And then we have to provide the Docker image name, which is sonatype/nexus 3. Now, one thing that we need to understand when we set up Nexus is that it takes little bit more time as compared to SonarQube or Jenkins to come up in running state. Okay, so you have to be patient. It will take a few more minutes as compared to that, like SonarQube or others. Okay, for example, if I get the IP address of Nexus, put it in browser colon 8081. You can see as of now it's not in running state because it takes little bit more minutes as compared to others. Okay, so we will just leave it as, and we will come back in a bit. Meanwhile, we can check the status of kubectl. Okay, so actually I have been noticing this, whenever we try to install certain tools using snap package, it takes more time as compared to others. Okay, now what we have to do, we will go back here, and now we have to copy this command. So what exactly it is? So basically what happens when you have created the cluster, okay, and you are already connected to your AWS account. So if you want to get permission to get access to your Kubernetes account, we have to run one command, which is going to create a file known as kubeconfig file. Now that kubeconfig file contains detailed information about the cluster, and that file can also be used for authentication. So if you have that file on your machine, then from that machine you'll be able to communicate with Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so we have to create that file first, and let's wait for this to complete. Okay, meanwhile we can check back. Yeah, Nexus, you can see now it's running. Okay, so now let's set up credentials for Nexus as well. So I click on sign in. Username is admin. Okay, password, so password is initial admin password is present on this file inside Nexus data. Okay, that means since we have created Docker container for Nexus, right? If I run this Docker ps, you can see this is the container, correct? So now what we have to do, we have to go inside the Docker container. Okay, so I will go inside it. How do we go inside Docker container? For that, we have to run the command docker exec -it. This means that I'm saying docker execute -it. -it means interactive terminal. I want to create an interactive terminal to communicate with container. Then ID, the container ID, which we received from here. Okay. Then you have to define what kind of terminal you want. So I want a bash terminal. So I will write bin/bash. Click enter. You can see now we are inside the container. Here ls. Now we can go from the first folder, but here we can see that we don't have that file admin.password, right? Now again, if let us come out of it and let us go inside sonatype work, this folder. Here we have Nexus 3 folder, so we will go inside that as well. And now here, when we go inside that, you can see admin.password. This is the file present which contains the credentials. So I will run the command cat and this, click enter. And now this is the initial admin password. You can copy it. Make sure to not copy the bash part. Okay. And we can put it here. Click on sign in. Now we have signed in. Click on next. We have to set up new password. You can set it up whatever you want. Okay. Click on next. And this part, so basically if you want that your artifact should be downloadable if someone has URL or if they require credentials. So if you want that freely anyone can download, you can enable anonymous access. If you don't want, you can disable it. Okay. Best practice would be obviously to disable it. So we can click on next. Now Nexus is set up, Jenkins is set up, SonarQube is set up. Okay. Okay. Now here, let us check if our cluster is running or not. So we have to run the command AWS CKS region, then your region in which cluster created, then you have to, this is the main command, update kubeconfig, which is going to create the kubeconfig file. And this is the cluster name. So we can copy this and we can run it here. Okay. Now, if I run this command kubectl get nodes, here you can see we are able to access our worker node. These are our worker node version 1.31, which is latest, I guess. Okay, that means Kubernetes cluster is set up and it's working fine. Now what we have to do, we can go ahead and start writing our pipeline. So the project that I'm going to use today is going to be this one, multi-tier application with a database, and yeah, everything is there, and we are going to understand one by one. Okay. Okay. So let us start writing our pipeline. Before that, we have to install certain plugins which are required. So for that, click on Manage Jenkins and click on Plugins, click on Available Plugins. Go here and one by one, we are going to search. First thing we have to install Stage View, make sure. After that, we have to install Kubernetes plugin. For that, first this. Even you install just Kubernetes, all this will be installed because they are dependent. Then I'm going to install SonarQube. And wait, I'll be explaining you very detailed SonarQube about SonarQube scanner. It's a completely different thing than SonarQube server. Okay. Then we have to install one more plugin, which is configure file provider. Okay. I think it is already installed. I'll show you in a bit. And we have to install Docker pipeline. Okay. And other than that, this seems fine. If any other plugin is required, we will install it later. Okay. So for now, I'll click on this. Now I'll go to install plugins, and one plugin very necessary that you need to see, which is config file provider. Okay. That plugin, I think basically there was a plugin separately, which is known as config file provider. So what happens, like when we want to publish our artifact to Nexus, two things we'll be needing. First, the repository URL inside Nexus to which you want to publish, and the credential, right? So generally what happened that previously inside Jenkins, we have this plugin config file provider, using which we'll be able to create the credential in a secret way. Okay. But previously in older version of Jenkins, like before this version, that plugin was not available by default. Okay. But at this point, they have added the feature by default. Okay. So we don't have to worry. Now this is done. We can click on Manage Jenkins, and whenever you install a specific plugin, a specific tool through plugins, you have to configure it inside this section, Tools. So click on Tools, scroll at the end. So first we have Docker, and we don't need to configure because we have already installed Docker on our machine. Okay. Then we have Maven. So Maven is available by default. We just need to configure it. So version you can select, name one you need to give. After that, you have to scroll up, go to SonarQube scanner installation. Here also, I'm going to give a name as sonar-scanner, and version you can choose. Rest everything is fine. You don't need to change anything. Click on apply. Okay. Coming back. Now let us create our pipeline. So here pipeline name will be CICD, and select the item as pipeline. Click on OK. First option, we have discard old builds, right? So basically, when you run multiple pipelines in history, there will be stored history of those things, and that occupies a lot of space. So what I want that in the history, I should be able to see only last two pipelines. So I'll just put here as two, okay, or maybe three. Scroll down. And now if you are doing this for the first time or you are not very much expert in writing pipelines, you can simply take help from Hello World. Why I'm saying that? Because this is the best way to get started by writing pipelines. Okay, because this generates this template. Okay, it generates this template, and once you have this template, you can start writing very easily. Let me show you. So we know that, okay, we in our pipeline we want to have multiple stages. So first I'll copy this and I'll create multiple first. Okay, just one thing you need to remember, that no two stages can have the same name. Okay, as of now everyone name is hello only. Okay, we have to change that. First we have to git checkout, we have to clone our repository, right? Git checkout. And also, yeah, do not worry, because I'm going to automate this whole thing, because we want that whenever we push any changes to our repository specific branch, then pipeline should be triggered. So here we have to provide information about repository URL and all. So you can click on pipeline syntax, scroll this and go to git, and then get the repository URL, which is going to be this one. Copy that, paste here, and branch is going to be main. Credential will be needed in case it is a private repository, but if since it is public, then we don't need to add credentials. Simply click on generate, copy this and write it here. First stage is done. Second stage, what we want to check if our source code has any kind of syntax based errors or not. For that we have to, what we command we run in Maven, we run the command mvn compile. But we are writing a Groovy script, it's a pipeline, so Jenkins does not know that we have to run this command as shell. So what we do, we enclose it inside a block first, and then we write as such. That means now Jenkins knows ki, okay, this command needs to be run as shell command. Okay, after compile, second stage which we have, which is going to be test cases. Okay, same thing we are going to write as such, double quotes, mvn test. Okay, now here I want to perform trivi fs scan. Fs scan means file system scan. I want to scan the directories and all. Okay, now there are one directory, multiple directories are there, multiple files there. So if I run trivi in the same directory, automatically it's going to run recursively. Recursively means it's going to go inside all these folders and scan all the files. Okay, that is one of the very good thing about trivi. So here we have to write trivi command, but before that, trivi is not at all installed. One thing that we have to understand, that whenever we want to run use any specific tool here, for example, we are using Maven, right? So now Maven is configured where? Maven was configured inside tool section, correct? Here we have configured it. So whenever we are going to use any tool, any specific tool that is configured in the tool section, we have to define it in our pipeline. How we can define? So defining Maven can be done using tools block. Inside that we can define it in this format. Format is going to be tools, then type of tool, we have Maven is a type of Maven, and the name with which we configured it is Maven 3. Okay, now if I run this, then Maven command will work. But in case we want to use a tool like trivi whose plugin is not available, that means we are not able to configure it inside the tool section. In that case, what we have to do, in that case, basically we have to install it directly on the Jenkins machine. And whenever you install a tool directly on the Jenkins machine, then you don't have to define it inside Jenkins. Okay, that means let us install here a trivi. Okay, so I can run the command as trivi, and we can see it's not present, but we get the command. Okay, and in order to get the latest one, we can simply go on browser, we can search here as install trivi. When we search it, click on the first link, and you can select the flavor that you are using. So I will copy this, I can directly run it on my VM, okay, on which Jenkins is running. Okay. So once we install trivi here, then we can directly use it in our pipeline without telling Jenkins that we don't have to basically define it. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use shell block again, type the command as trivi, then the format is like that, trivi, because we are calling the trivi tool, then we have to tell what we want to scan. So I want to scan for fs means file system. Then there are see, normally you can simply write this trivi fs dot, it will work fine. But this is not the best practice. If you're talking about DevSecOps, everything should be best practice. That means what I want, that the report should be generated in a specific format. So for that we can add hyphen hyphen format. Okay. And the report I want, it should be in a format of table. So I can write table. Then I want that report generated, instead of showing it in the console log, I want that report to be exported in a separate file. So format of the file, name of the file will be like this, -o, like we are exporting it, and I want the report fs.html. Okay. Then which directory I want to scan, so I'll just put a dot. That means I want to scan the current directory. Okay. There are many other parameters also which can be added, but as of now, this is more than enough. Okay. So this part is done. Next step would be to perform SonarQube analysis. Okay. Now performing SonarQube analysis is quite interesting, because before that we need to understand two things. What two things? So everyone at this point knows about this. Like we have this SonarQube server. Everyone says, okay, SonarQube is what? SonarQube is a tool that is going to help us perform code quality check and code coverage. But basically, inside SonarQube, we have two components. One is known as SonarQube scanner. Second is known as SonarQube server. Okay. So when we perform this SonarQube analysis, it generates a report, and that report is published on the server. Okay. So as of now, we have this server. This SonarQube is basically the server where the report is going to be published for analysis. The developers are going to check the report. Okay. But that generation of the report will be done by SonarQube scanner tool. So these are two different things. SonarQube scanner is a tool that is going to perform the analysis, generate the report, and publish it on the server. Server is the separate place where we are going to publish the report. Okay. Now, so in order, first let me save this. So in order to use that, what we have to do, in order to connect to any kind of website, what we need the URL of the website plus a kind of credentials. Okay. So for that, first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to manage Jenkins. System is the place where you can configure servers. Okay. So SonarQube, this is the server that we want to configure. For that, I can copy this, the URL, go here, scroll down till you find something SonarQube servers like this. Okay. Click on add SonarQube, provide a name like Sonar, server URL, make sure to remove the last slash, and we have to add the token. So first let me save this. Once we have saved, we can go to manage Jenkins, go to credentials. Where is it? Yeah. Click on global, click on add credentials, and we have to add credential for SonarQube. So we will use secret text. Okay. In secret, we have to add, click on administration, security, users, and token. Click on provide a name, generate the token, copy that, and add it here. Now token is added, which is going to be used for authentication. So I'll add the name as Sonar token. Okay. Same thing, I'll put it in description as well. Click on create. Now we can go back to manage Jenkins, system, scroll down. Here we can select the token and click on apply. Okay. Coming back here. Now, as I told, whenever you want to use a tool that is third party and you want to use it inside your pipeline, you need to define it. Okay. Now, SonarQube scanner tool is also that was defined in the tool section. Correct. If I scroll down, you'll be able to see here it is defined with the name Sonar Scanner. That means if it is it's a third party tool and we want to use it in our pipeline, we need to define it. How do we do that? By creating an environment. We create an environment block. Inside that, first we are going to create a variable named scanner underscore home. Scanner home means what? It means I'm providing the name of creating a variable for the home directory for the scanner tool, whose name is going to be Sonar Scanner, which we already configured. Okay. So this is defined. Now the tool is defined, we can usually use it. How we can use it? So we can go to this block, click on pipeline syntax, and scroll down till you find something like with SonarQube environment. Click on that, generate this, generate the block, copy it, go back here, paste it here. But there is a specific change that we have to do now. What change we have to do? So basically, here it is adding credential ID because it is assuming that we are going to add the SonarQube URL in this block, but that is not the safe thing. Okay, if you are considering the security as priority, we cannot add any kind of URL or any kind of credential directly here. So what we are going to do, I'm going to first remove this. Now inside this block, you can see only one thing is there, that is Sonar. And if you see here, Sonar was also the name of server that we already configured inside Jenkins system section. You can see that, and it has already provided the URL and credentials. So if I just call it here, that means it has the credential as well. Okay. Now we can write the command. So I'm going to write as such 3 quotes. 3 quotes means whatever I write in multiple lines, they are like each line separate. Okay. So here I can first call the tool. Okay. How we can do, we have created a variable named scanner home, correct, slash bin slash sonar. Okay, I'll explain you in a bit why this is happening, why we have written this. Okay, after that we have to add some parameters, which is going to be d sonar dot project key equal to any name, the name that you want. So I'm going to go with bank app. Second parameter I want to add, which is going to be d sonar dot project name and capital equal to, again you can put the same name or you can put different name, it's up to you. And next thing I want to write next line, so I'll just put that slash, and here I can add another thing. Now the thing is, since I'm using a Java based project, that means it has the Java based artifacts, the binary files. So if you are working with Java project, you need to make sure that you are providing the path of that as well. So I'll add dsonar.java dot binaries equal to target. Okay, because generally that file exists, that binary file exists inside target folder. Okay, now once that is done, what we can do, we can go with next step. Okay, and here first, 1 second, let us create more blocks because we'll be needing them. So SonarQube is stage is added. Next stage would be to build the application, publish it to Nexus. Okay, so for that, first of all, I'll go here, go to go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, plugins, and here we have to search in available plugins as Maven. Then you see this plugin. See, this was not, we did not install initially. Now it's visible. Select this, and there is this one. These 3 plugins, selected them. Click on install. Okay, and one thing I'll show you. Here you see there are only 6 options, right? As soon as I refresh the page, since we have installed that plugin, config file provider, there will be one more option available here. So if I refresh this page, you can see managed files. So click on that and click on add new config, and you can see there are multiple options: properties file, JSON file. These are different kind of configuration file for different programming languages. So we are going to go with global Maven settings. We can provide a name here. Let's say I'll say as DevOps settings. Click on next. Now, as I told you, if you want to publish our artifact to Nexus, what we have to do, we need to make sure that we have the repository URL to which we want to publish and the credentials. So if I go back to Nexus, go to this repositories, we have these many repositories. Okay, so for us, 2 repositories which we are going to work with: releases and snapshots. Releases are the repository which is going to store the artifact that is of production level, that is going to be used in production. A snapshot is the repository which is going to store artifact that is going to be used for lower environment. Okay, so I'll copy this URL, go to repository. Inside your repository, you'll be having a pom.xml file. Scroll down in that, you'll be able to find this section, distribution management. If it is not present already, you have to add it. Okay, so here we have this section, Maven releases, Maven snapshot, and we have a URL. So we have to add the URL. So first we have releases, so I have already copied the repository URL. I'll paste it here, and then I have to copy for snapshot as well. Sorry about that. I'll just copy this, add it in snapshots. That means we have added the repository URLs. Okay, save this. Now credentials we have to add, right? So for that we can go back to Jenkins in the managed file section, scroll down, and here you'll be able to see something as server. You see the section server, right? Remove the comment, and here we are going to configure the credentials. So here I can provide maven dash releases, username and password we have to put, which is going to be admin. See here I'm not going very deep in Nexus because it's a kind of big topic that we have to study, but I'm showing direct use case, direct how we are going to use it. Okay, if you want again, okay, let's just configure. I can provide credentials, and then we have to add the same thing for this one. We have to add it for Maven snapshots as well. Okay. Many of you might be thinking, Aditya, this file is already visible, right? So there is another option also. You see this option, server credentials, click on add, and here you can provide ID and credentials. Okay, but that is up to you. You can practice with that. Okay. Now credential added, and other thing also added, right? Now what we have to do, we have to add the stage of publish to Nexus repository. Okay. So I'll add the stage as build and publish to Nexus. Okay. Here we have to write the stage. Take help from pipeline syntax. Here you'll be able to find something with Maven. You can this is this section with Maven. First select the Maven. All these things are already available. Okay. Scroll down to this global Maven settings. Select the one that you have set up, my global settings. Rest leave it as it is. Generate the block. Copy this. Paste it here. And now we can write the command as such mvn deploy. Okay, this is fine. Now next step would be to build Docker images. So we are going to write build and tag Docker image. Okay. Now the thing is that Docker is a kind of command that needs to be run within a script. Okay, it requires script in a script block. So first I'm going to create a script block. Inside that block we are going to create a separate Docker block. For that you can go here, pipeline syntax, and here you'll be able to find with Docker registry. Select that. Now if you have Docker registry that is private, you need to add the credential, add the URL here. If it is public, then we can just go with it is. If you are using Docker Hub, then we can leave it as it is. Credential we have to provide. Click on add Jenkins, and username password you can add. This is going to be my username, and password I can add, and ID you can put whatever you want. I'm just going with Docker cred. Okay, click on add. We can select this block, and this block is the one inside which we are going to write the Docker commands. So I have copied that. I'll paste it here, and here I can again we have to write as shell block command. Here we have to write Docker build -t your own username, Docker username. Then we are going to write like bank app colon latest, and any tag you want. Then we have to put the local path of Docker file which is present in current directory. So I'm just going to put -dot, sorry, just a dot. Okay, this is going to basically what it does, it's going to build the Docker image with this name. Okay, after that, once we have Docker image built, what we want to scan the Docker image that we can do using Trivy. Okay, here I'm going to change this to image, and here it's going to be image, and here instead of dot we are going to write the Docker image name which we want to scan. Also the report I want, it should be in a format of image.html. Okay, so once we are able to get the report what we want, next step would be to publish the report. Here we can write Docker push and then the Docker image name. Okay, okay, so these many stages as we have written, one stage that is pending which is going to be for deploying the application to Kubernetes. Okay. Before that, let us run this one time just to confirm that the code that we have written till now it's correct. We have some error. Let us see. Okay. As I told you, see, no two stage can have the same name. So we have to change the name. This one here, we have to change the name to publish Docker image. Okay. And we can run this again just to confirm. Okay. So if you are running this for the first time, whatever tool you have defined like SonarQube scanner, then 𝗲𝘂 or whatever, it's going to be installed for the first time. Okay. So meanwhile, this is happening. What we can do, we can set up a role-based access control inside our EKS cluster. Okay. Let us go to this. Okay. And now, what we are going to do, we are going to create, first of all, we can confirm that we have the access to our Kubernetes cluster. Okay. I'm going to do this. Let me explain you in a bit. 1 second. Where is it? Are back. Let me explain you in detail because then only it will be able, it will be making sense to you, like why we need to have RBAC in our cluster. Okay. So basically, what happens? Basically, screen is visible, right, guys? Just confirm. Guys, I'll be reading the message later on. Okay, I'm not able to read everything now. Okay, coming back here. So basically what happens when we have a cluster, K8 cluster that is set up. So by default, see the command that I'm running as of now, kubectl, it is happening with root. Okay, that is like the high level permissions. So in order to like set up our RBAC, what we have to do, first we are going to create a service account, then we are going to create a role. Okay. Then we are inside this role, we are going to set up permissions like it can perform the deployment, it can delete deployment, it can update deployment, and to what resources, like it can change pods, deployment, so and so. So these things will be defined for role. Okay. Next up, what we are going to do, we are going to create another resource which is known as binding. Okay, role binding. That means using this we are going to bind this role to service. Okay. Okay. Now, once this role is bind to service, that means this service account has the permission that we have defined for role. Okay. And once that is done, then whatever deployment we do with using this service account, it will be able to perform. And that's exactly we are going to do. We are going to set up a role. We are going to set up service account, give it permission to perform the deployment. Okay. So let us do that. Okay. All the files that is needed for that, you will be able to find here. Okay. First thing that we have to do is create a separate namespace inside which we want to we want to deploy our application. For that, you can run the command kubectl create. Either you can write full namespace or I prefer short ns. And here I am going to create namespace named web apps. Okay. Created. Next thing what we have to do, we have to create a service account. Format is quite simple. Okay, detail I'm not going very detail, but I'll show as much as you can. So for now, this account, first of all, we have defined that we are creating a service account kind. The resource that we are creating, it is of kind service account. Name, this is the name of the service account that we are giving, and this is going to be the namespace inside which we are creating. Okay, so first I'll create vi svc.yml, paste the contents here, save this, and we can run kubectl apply -f svc. Okay, service account created. Now after service account we have to create role, and here you can see very clearly resources. We have defined on what resources we want to give permission and what permission, get, list, watch, create, update. You can see that, right? So once we do that, we have copy that, we can copy that as well, and this is the service, this is resource of kind role. Okay, so I'm going to create this as well, role.yml, paste it here. Make sure that this namespace is correct that you have created. Okay, and I can create this as well. Now role is created, service account is created. Next step would be to perform the to assign this role to our service account so that service account can have permission, because as of now service account does not have any, it has just read only permissions by default. Okay, so for binding, we can use this resource, which is resources of role binding kind. So we can create that. So we are going to create vi bind.yaml. We can put it there. Save this. Then kubectl apply -f bind. Now what has happened? Now service account has the permissions. Okay. Next step would be cat. Next step would be, so there are, see, as of now we are not using persistent volumes, but basically sometimes what happens that when you use persistent volumes, it requires more permissions. In that case, we have to go with cluster role. We have to create cluster role, and then we have to bind it to our service account. But since I'm not using it, so I'm not going to create that. But in case you are working with a project where you are using persistent volume also, then you have to create cluster role and bind it to the service account. Okay. Now, once we have the service account ready and it has the permissions, we need to use that service account for authentication, right? So how do we authenticate? So we have to create a secret token of that service account. For that, you can click on this. It will take you to the official page of Kubernetes. There you'll be able to find a resource to create secret. Kind, you can see secret. Okay. So we'll just copy that. Go here, vi secret.yml, paste here, but we have to modify it a little bit. For example, we have to change the name of my service account because in our case, it's Jenkins, correct? And here, my secret name, you can just, whatever you want, you can just put it. It's up to you, okay? And you can save this. Now we are going to create, but remember one thing very clearly I'm saying, because, one second, let me show you. Cat. Here you can see nowhere we have defined the namespace name, right? And we want to create all these resources within namespace. So we are going to run the command kubectl apply -f, and after that we have to write secret, then hyphen, and then name of the web namespace. That means this is going to be created inside the namespace named web apps. Okay. Okay. So we have created. Now what we have to do? We have to get the token. Okay. So token we can create by running the command kubectl describe secret. And what is the secret name? We have sec name. And where it does it exist? It exists inside namespace web apps. Once you run this command, you'll be able to get a token. Copy that token immediately. Copy that. Go to your Jenkins. Okay, we have some issue. We'll, one second, let me see. Okay, we'll see it in a bit. Let me just add the credentials first. So I'll go to manage Jenkins, go to credentials, go to global, add credentials. Kind will be secret text, add the secret. ID will be K8-token. Copy that and paste it here. Click on create. Okay. So now token is added. Okay. And now before that, let us see. Okay. SonarQube issue we have. Let's see what issue. Okay. One small mistake, I guess we have done. Let us see. Here, this name that you see, this is supposed to be the name of Sonar Scanner tool. And if I go back to manage Jenkins, you'll be able to see inside tool section, we have configured the name of the tool as Sonar Scanner. So copy that. We can go back and we can update this. Okay. Rest seems fine. So click on apply and that should fix the issue. Okay. Now, meanwhile, this is happening. One more thing that we can do, click on configure, scroll down, go to pipeline syntax, scroll down, and here we will search for something with kubectl or something like that. Kube config. Yeah, this we can select. For credential, immediately select Cube token, then server endpoint that you'll be able to get. Go to your AWS account and here search for EKS. Open the cluster that you have created, and here you can see this option API server endpoint. So copy that and we will add it here. Cluster name, that also we can get. This is the cluster name. Sorry about that. Namespace, we have web apps, and rest everything is fine. You can simply click on generate. I'll copy this. Now this is the block inside which we are going to write the command to deploy the application. Okay, and in the last stage, we can add that block. Here we can provide the name as deploy to K8. Okay. Now, first thing that we can do, we can go to the repository. Where is it? So inside that we have ds.yaml, which is the file application file, and here the image name. Okay, so as of now we are not changing the image tag dynamically, but I'll be showing on later on. Okay, so as of now I'm using this image only. Okay, and because later on we can set up parameter and we can set up some script to update the Docker image at the whenever we build new Docker image. Okay, so this is the YAML file that we are going to deploy, and for that we can run the command here as sh and double quotes kubectl apply -f ds.yaml -n web apps, because we want to deploy inside web apps. Okay. After that, what I want to run a command sleep 30. That means basically what I mean that once the application once deployment starts, so it takes some time to completely get like deployed. Okay. So we want that before we run our next step, we want that deployment should be successfully completed. Okay. Also, I'll create another stage which is going to be for verifying the deployment, and I can write this stage as verify deployment. Okay, and here we can write kubectl get svc. Okay, click on apply, and this seems fine to me. Meanwhile, we can check the status. Okay, so now pipeline is successful. Okay, we have these stages which are working fine. Just to confirm, we can go to Nexus, go to repositories, go to snapshots. Sorry, here browse snapshots. You can see this is the artifact. Okay, one question that you might be thinking, Aditya, what is the whole point of storing the artifacts here? So sometimes what happens, let's say this is our project. Okay, so we are going to build artifacts multiple times, and every time we build, see, you can see here the name of the basically version of the artifact is snapshot. If I remove snapshot, automatically the artifact will be deployed into release. Okay, as I mentioned, release artifacts are basically for production and snapshot artifacts for lower environment. So as of now, let's say I'm building it for lower environment, that's why snapshot is written here. As soon as I remove the snapshot keyword, automatically it will be published to repository. Okay, talking about what exactly is the use of it, so multiple times we store with different code, we set up artifacts, so different artifacts we can have, and it can be useful for rollback also. For example, if I want to deploy the application of the old artifact, I can download this in my pipeline, then update it in my Docker image and then deploy. This will be helping, this will help us to roll back also. Okay, but again, see, in today's session obviously it's not possible to show everything into our session, but yeah, as I say, okay, I'll be showing detail in course, each session, each tools and everything. We are going very deep. Okay. Okay, coming back here, so this is done, and let me confirm everything is fine. Okay, so now I'll trigger it. Okay, and after that, one more thing I need to show you, the webhook part, like how exactly we configure webhook so that automatic like automation can be established properly. Okay, let's wait for this. Okay, meanwhile let it run. Meanwhile we can see how we can set up webhook. So for that we can go to manage Jenkins first and go to plugins, and in available plugins search for generic and install this generic webhook trigger, because this will be needed. Okay, once you install it, basically, the default webhook that is available and everyone is showing also that on YouTube. So that is like good for main branch, but it does not work well, because if you push to any other branch also, main branch pipeline will be triggered. So what I want, that my webhook should be specific to branch. That means if we have 3 branches and I want to configure webhook only for main branch, then any changes are pushed to main branch, then only deployment or trigger should be happening. Okay. So now we can, okay, we have some error. Let us check out. Deployed to K8, we have some issue. Let us see. You can see the error kubectl not found. That means on our Jenkins machine, kubectl is not present. So what we can do, we can install it immediately. We can run the command kubectl, and using snap itself, we can install kubectl. Okay, meanwhile, let us configure our webhook also. So for that, we can go to configure, scroll down till you see one option of generic webhook trigger. Click on that. Now we have so many different options, and actually I was teaching the same thing in my course also. So I have set up proper documentation. Okay, step-by-step process is there, but first we have to go to configure post parameters. Here we have to add 2 things. First, post parameters. First we have to add ref, which is going to be referencing the branch, and then we are going to have a regular expression $.ref, which is going to get the details of branch from this variable. Make sure to expression should be JSON path. Scroll down, and then next step would be string as token. So we have to set up one token, and after that we have optional filter. Okay. So we'll scroll down here. So basically we have to set up one token. So one option is that directly you can write anything here, or you can set up a token securely. So when we're talking about DevSecOps, obviously we are going to set up the token here. You can see this section same as token above, but configured with secret text credential. Okay. So click on this, click on Jenkins, and this will be kind will be secret text. Any name you can put. So I'm just going to put as DevOps Shack. Let me just confirm. DevOps Shack. Okay. And ID you can put like anything, webhook dash token. Copy this and paste it here also. Add it. We can select it. Sorry, we can select it. Then we can scroll down to optional filter. So basically here we can define like for which branch we want to configure the webhook. Okay. And if I show you, so the format is going to be something like this: refs, heads, branch name. And we can write it this. So I want to configure this just for main branch as of now. Okay. And in text, we can write $ref so that it can reference the branch value. Okay. And rest everything seems fine. Okay. Now here you can see we can get the URL also. How we can get the URL? The format is going to be something like this. First, you can copy it on your notepad or something. And then we have this section. And I can add it here. Make sure to remove the extra slash. Okay. That means first we have Jenkins URL, which we can get from here. Till 8080 we have to copy, right? I can copy that and I can paste it here. Again, make sure to remove extra slash, then generic webhook trigger, invoke, then token. The token that we have set up is DevOps Shack. You can set up, you can put it anything you want. Okay. DevOps Shack, I'll just copy this. Okay. And here we can first save this, save the changes, go to pipeline, go to repository, then go to settings, webhooks, click on add webhook, add the URL that we have set up. Content type should be JSON. Secret, it's optional, but as of now we are not needing. Plus SSL verification. So this option is recently added. Previously it was not available. As of now we have deployed our Jenkins that is running on the HTTP and not HTTPS. HTTPS thing is something that we have to configure certificate. That also I have shown actually in course. Okay. So here for now we have to disable it, because if we enable, then we won't be able to do it properly. Event, you can select like on what kind of action you want to trigger your pipeline. So I want to do it for push event. Click on add webhook, and let's see here what happens. Click on this, recent deliveries. This check mark says that it works fine. Response is 200. That means okay. Okay. Now we can go back. We can check the status. Okay. So not sure, but this is quite slow actually. So what I'm going to show you now, once that is done, then if I push any kind of changes to main branch, only main, then the pipeline will be triggered. If I push any kind of changes to start or end branch, then it won't be triggered. That's what we want to show you. And for that reason only, I'm configuring using the generic webhook trigger, because there are other webhook option available, but that may not work as specific to this. Okay, this is very specific to different branches. Okay, let's wait for a few more seconds, then we can trigger the pipeline again. Okay, this time it is set up, and let me just confirm that webhook is also configured correctly. Some value filtered. Because okay, so let me try to push something on main branch, and okay, first let us push something to this branch, and let's see what happens. This is different branch named start. If I just push a space, comment the changes. So here nothing is happening. Okay, nothing we can see. Now we can try to push changes to main branch, and let's see if it works or not. I'll just put one space here. Click on commit. Click changes committed. You can see here automatically the pipeline got triggered. Okay, and in few seconds it will start automatically. And if I open this, you can see generic cause. That means it has been triggered using the webhook that we have configured. Okay, and you can clearly see that it works only with the uh, generic webhook, because it is specific to branch. That means if you push anything only to main branch, then only the pipeline will be triggered, no other branch. And you can configure it for different branches also. Okay, and yes, so this will take little bit of time, but yeah, let's see. I know lots of people are thinking like the session is going long, but trust me, even in proper detail courses on YouTube, lots of videos I have seen. Usually people will tell everything, but when you are working with these kind of pipelines, you have to understand everything why you are doing that, because Trivi FS scan, we know okay, it is doing file system scan, but still many people don't know what exactly does it scan. Okay, and for now, for example, like still not many people know like who is going to perform the analysis. So Trivi, the report that Trivi generates, it's a kind of thing that will be needed for scanning, that can be analyzed by developers plus DevOps, because there are in reports there are certain things that requires attention of DevOps engineers, while there are certain things that require attention of developers. Okay, so we can see the status. Now also don't worry, in a bit I'll show you like how we can add custom domain also. Okay, so deployment is done here, and we can confirm here. Let me run kubectl get svc -n web apps. Okay, we have the URL. Let us try to access our application. Immediately it may not be coming up, so it may take a little bit of time, but yeah, let's wait for this. Meanwhile, yeah, okay. See, the reason that I ran this sleep for 30 seconds is because after deployment is completed, so it needs some minutes or few minutes to completely get deployed, and later on we want the external IP also, so that we can access it. Okay, let's wait for this. Okay, application is running fine. Okay,